calls for the 26th session. Like Laura said, we've got a brand new executive director, and I had a chance to, I see you on the screen, Deirdre. I don't know if everybody can see her yet. We've got a lot of people on. I don't know if I've got you pinned or highlighted yet. I think when you start talking, you'll probably jump up. But anyway, welcome to the Friday calls. Thank you for spending some time with me this week. It was very, very nice to be able to meet you and spend some time with you. Thank you for joining us today. I think Deidre is going to be a fantastic addition to our organization. I can already tell she's got our stuff figured out, and was very pleased to hear with her background how quickly she's up to speed. And I think she's going to be a great addition. So Deidre, welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourself very briefly and maybe say a few words.
Very nice to be here. In fact, I started my environmental career at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, but I won't tell you what year because it's been a bit. And I have worked in environment pretty consistently since then. So it's, and in particular with water, and water infrastructure. So excited to be joining this great team and look forward to working with everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Deirdre. And just don't tell the Transportation Committee that you really prefer water resources.
I didn't say prefer, I just love it.
I'll just say for the water resources engineers in the state, it's nice to have somebody that speaks our lingo. So thank you.
Deirdre, all I want to know is, were you there before Jeff Littlejohn started at DEP or after?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I was like 8 years old.
Well, thank you, Deidre. Hey, Laura, sorry to throw this at you at the last minute, but it doesn't look like I'm able to share my screen. So
I'll take care of it.
You're able. Oh, no, wait, I've got the button. Okay, thank you. I got it now. All right. So I've been starting on the reports again, like we've done last year. The format's a little different, but because I'm using a new tool, but the way we're laying it out is going to be like last year. They're going to be ordered by action. So let me just kind of cover some basics for anybody that is joining us for these calls for the first time. A lot of bills get filed each session. The vast majority of them, more than 90% of them, do not make it across the finish line. More than 50% of them don't even move a muscle. So just because there's an environmental bill that gets filed or something related to the environment that makes it on this list does not mean we should be concerned about it. But we do track everything because it's still an unpredictable process, and things can move for strange reasons. So particularly early in the session, this is going to be kind of a shotgun approach. Everything that has anything to do with the environment or coastal policy or water policy, alternative water supply, any of those things are going to make it on this list. And if anybody is not muted, please go ahead and mute yourselves. Thanks. If anybody sees something that is not on my list, please do email me or Laura, and we'll make sure we get it added to the tracker. I try to grab everything I can see, but sometimes I miss some things. Also, I do want to say that the bill filing deadline has not ended yet. So up until, I believe, Monday, close of business, there will still be bills coming out of bill drafting. So this is not a complete list either at this point, since we're still a few days before the start of session and a few days before, basically a business day before the bill filing deadline. So with all of that, the way these reports come out, and you'll get them every week, is they're going to be ordered by last action, which just means the most recent activity will be at the top. And you'll see as we go through session why this is important. Is this bill will get, or this list will get longer and longer through session, or at least it will get long. But the ones that we really care about will be at the top of the list, because they'll be the ones that are moving. For this week, my plan is to go through everything on this list just to kind of give everybody a taste for what's been filed already. Again, this is not 100% complete, because I already know of a handful of bills that have dropped in the last 48 hours or so since I put this list together. Next week will be complete, but anyway, there's still a lot on this list, and I want to get a sense for, I want all of y'all to get a sense for what's been filed already. If I have a couple of comments to share about them, it's because I've studied them or talked to people about them, or it's a repeat from last year. There are going to be some bills on this list that are new this year, and I haven't studied everything. So please forgive me if I skip over a few or don't know about some of them. I will be learning about all of the ones that are moving for sure. Anyway, so with that, anybody have any questions or comments before we kick this thing off? Did I not cover anything? Laura, should I cover anything just about the process? House, Senate, committees? I guess I should say a few words
Sure.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember, like, if you're the first time watching one of these, what do you need to know? So obviously we're bicameral. You got House bills. They're odd numbers. So this House Bill 855 over here that you see, that you can just know by the bill number that's a House bill because it's an odd number. I'll tell you that the way these reports are formatted, if you click on the the uh, the actual bill number over here, it will pop up a summary. This is a pretty nice feature. This is why I like this new tool that will show you a more complete summary of the bill. This is still just a synopsis. This is not the bill, but it will tell you a little bit of a highlight. Um, just so you know, I've taken this summary and put this in the report. So you don't need to click these things just to get the summary, but you do want to click these things if for example, you would like to know, what committees it's been referred to, maybe who's on those committees. You can click on these links and find a little bit more about the committees, and you can also drill down into some of the actions. Here's where you actually link to the bill itself. If you come down to the bill text and amendments, you will. Right now, there's only the bill text. As if this bill makes progress and gets amended, and there's different versions of the bill, you'll see those different versions listed here. I'll probably do this maybe one more time once there's some activity, and I can show you a few more things that's happening through the process. The Senate has the same thing. They're even number bills. They also have committees. For these bills to make it through, for a bill like this to make it through, it has to be calendared, brought up on this first committee. It has to pass through that committee, and then it gets referred to the next committee. And that will follow through until it gets to the last committee. This one has 4 committees, which is a really challenging for any bill to make it through 4 committees in one session. These committees meet once a week. So you already kind of do the math here. This is at least 4 weeks just to get through the committees that's been referred to, and the session's only 6 weeks long. So that's why this is a very challenging path for this particular bill. But once it gets through all of its committees, whether it's 2, 3, or 4, every bill has at least 2 committees of reference. Then it will go to the floor, in this case of the House, and it has to pass the House twice. It has to have 2 complete votes of the House, and then it will get referred over to the Senate. And on the Senate side, if this bill has a Senate companion, and the Senate companion moves through all of those same committees, gets voted on the Senate floor, then the House or the Senate will decide, am I going to take up, they're going to make a consent, they're going to make a decision about which bill, the House or the Senate version, will be the consensus version. And then if it's the House version, it will be taken up by the Senate and passed out the final time. If it's the Senate version, it will be taken up by the House and passed the final time. And then that bill becomes an engrossed bill. And at that point, it's a joint product of the House and the Senate, and is endorsed by both, has been passed by both. And then it gets presented to the governor. And if it's signed by the governor, then it's enrolled into law. So that's kind of the schoolyard rock from 1980s era version for Florida bills. Anybody have any questions before I dive in? I don't plan to do that every week, but ask me a question if you have questions. Okay, all right. So this year, first bill report. I mentioned this to a few folks, and I know we've talked about this the last few years. PFAS continues to be an issue that this legislature will need to deal with until we get a complete set of PFAS water quality standards for surface water and drinking water, until we've dealt with how we're going to handle PFAS at the points of generation and the points of kind of collection, like at wastewater plants and drinking water plants and landfills. But anyway, so PFAS will continue to be a topic. This year, there are already two different sets of PFAS bills, House and Senate companion bills have been filed. One of them in the House is filed by Representative Connerly. We've talked with him before on the Water Resources Committee about his intention and his PFAS bills. But anyway, so there will be PFAS activity this year is certainly, I believe that at least one of these sets of PFAS policy bills will need to pass this year, will pass this year. This particular one requires, once DEP establishes cleanup target levels, that it go back to the legislature for ratification. So it imposes an additional step to what would normally already be a difficult water quality standard setting process, where DEP promulgates the standards, it goes before the Environmental Regulatory Commission, has to get voted on and approved by the Environmental Regulatory Commission, then has to survive, petitions and legal challenges. So that's the typical process for a water quality standard setting in Florida. With this particular bill, it would impose an additional step of after that is all complete, to go back to the legislature for ratification in the subsequent session. There are some other things in here, of course. Like I said, I've not done a deep dive on, well, I will tell you, I have not done a deep dive on this one yet. But you can kind of see from the summary here that there are a number of things in here, liability protection, a few things in here that are worthy of your attention if PFAS is something that is near and dear to you. I will tell you that the fact that this bill has 4 committees of reference means that this bill will have a very difficult time to get through the process. So just right out of the gate, seeing four committees of reference, I say, it's got like a 10% chance to make it through. The companion bill is not to be too political, is filed by a Democrat. Senator Berman doesn't often get a lot of legislation through. So like when I see those two things, I think this is probably of the pair of PFAS bills, this is probably the one that isn't going to make it through. Connerly's is coming up. Yeah, here's Connerly's down here, but let me take this in order. Representative Lamarcus bill on infrastructure and resiliency. I tagged it. I tagged some anything coastal and anything resiliency related. It's going to be on this list too. This has some interesting things about public-private partnerships and qualifying projects and investment in coastal resiliency. If this is your bread and butter, then do take a look at 751 by Lamarca. 1019 by Connerly is his PFAS bill. We've talked to Connerly a lot over the summer and through our committee process. So we know that he's studying PFAS. This is a topic of interest to him. He's particularly interested in PFAS and biosolids and how PFAS may enter the ground and contaminate private property through the application of biosolids. He's also concerned about the any stockpiles of AFFF, which is a aqueous film forming foam used by firefighters. For decades, it has contained PFAS. A lot of the stockpiles of that may still exist at fire stations. They're not supposed to be using it. I think they cannot use it for training anymore. But it still may be used in emergencies until they can replace it with the newer fluoride-free foams, which are supposed to be PFAS-free foams. They're pretty expensive to dispose of AFFF because it contains PFAS. It's hazardous. It's difficult. It's expensive to dispose of. It's also expensive to clean those containers. So anyway, he's interested in helping those fire programs get off of the old AFFF and onto the new. And there's some other things in here too. So we're going to be watching Connerly's PFAS bill. Moving along, I need to pick up the pace here. Conservation easements by McLean. This is a retread of a bill that we watched last year that I think made it all the way through both the House and the Senate, but couldn't get conformed at the end, didn't pass. But this has to do with water management districts' releases of conservation easements. That there's been concerns about the difficulty of getting a conservation easement released, even if you can find a replacement conservation easement. Anyway, this imposes strict standards on how to do that and obligates the district or requires the district to release conservation easements when you meet the criteria. There are a few other things in this bill. We'll be tracking this bill, and I believe it will move this year. This is an interesting bill. This is a new topic. I've not seen this before, but you can kind of read from the title and the quick summary here that this would create a new safe battery collection and recovery act. So this is just about reducing the types of batteries and the amount of batteries that are disposed of in landfills, and try to get more resource recovery out of them, and reduce the heavy metals and other pollution that's happening in the landfills because of battery disposal. So as as everything around us becomes more battery driven and electrified, things like this, I'm really not surprised that something will pop up. But anyway, we'll watch this one. Senator McClain is in a position of leadership in the Senate, and the fact that he's got his name on this is probably a good indicator that this one might move. There is a House companion already filed by Representative Gentry. This is the PFAS companion bill, the first PFAS bill I mentioned at the beginning. I'm going to skip through this for speed. The Resilient Buildings Bill by Rodriguez is different from the other infrastructure bill I just mentioned. This has to do with tax credits for resilience improvements. I haven't studied this. If I'm murdering the purpose, it's because I haven't studied it. So I beg your forgiveness, but I'll look into that, and probably some of our folks will be interested in that. So please do take a look. Waste management by Martin, and there's a companion bill already by Esposito. I've skimmed through this. This addresses a few different things in the solid waste industry. I know one of the things it talks about, or one of the things it's intending to do, is to address some old provisions about recycling goals from there was a 2025 targets for achieving 70% total recycling. I don't remember all the specifics, but there were some recycling goals put in our solid waste statutes. This is freshening up some of those, but there's some other things in here about auxiliary containers and preempting regulation of those things at the state level. These are things like plastic shopping bags. So anyway, keep an eye on this. I suspect this bill will probably move. So this bill 718, and there's a companion by Maggard. It's called water management or land and water management, but y'all should keep an eye on this. It is a full up local government regulatory preemption bill. So this would prohibit all local government, cities and counties, from passing or adopting any laws, regulations, rules, or policies related to any water quality, quantity, pollution control, pollution discharge, or wetlands areas. It preempts all of that in the state. So this is Representative Maggard filed a very similar bill last year. It may even be the same bill language last year. It was a lightning rod during session. Got a lot of opposition from the local governments, no surprise. But the fact that it's back again, and with Senator McClain as a sponsor of the Senate companion, is interesting to me. So I would have said, oh, it's just Rep. Maggard trying to, tilting at windmills. But it's back again, and people are talking about it. I've talked to Rep. Connerly about this bill. There may be ways to tweak this, and what they're after is eliminating unnecessary regulatory duplication, just because of the inefficiency and affordability issues and things like that. But anyway, there's some interesting policy to chew on those bills. Okay, so this next bill, 848 by Truenow, it's stormwater treatment. So, obviously I'm a stormwater engineer. The stormwater engineers on the call immediately jumped on this, wondering, are they going to tweak the stormwater rule before it even, really the paint is dry on it? What's going on here? And, unfortunately, fortunately for everybody that was worried about that scenario, it doesn't do that. It doesn't have anything to do with the stormwater rule, except for a narrow provision of the stormwater rule dealing with off-site compensating stormwater treatment. And for any of you who've been talking to me over the last couple of years about stormwater nutrient credits as a way to mitigate costs associated with meeting the new nutrient performance criteria in the rule, this bill would eliminate that opportunity. This bill would make the only way to do compensating stormwater treatment through the new category that is not yet out on the street yet, called the Water Quality Enhancement Area, which is a nature-based way of generating water quality credits, similar to a mitigation bank. This rule would eliminate the ability to do offsite compensating stormwater treatment with stormwater facilities, and would make the only way to do offsite compensating stormwater treatment with nature-based water quality enhancement areas. So I'm not a fan. I've met with Senator Trunow personally on this, not advocating for our association, but I don't like the idea of removing tools from the toolbox, and I don't like the idea of cutting stormwater engineers out of the equation and leaving it up to mitigation bankers to address the water quality provisions in the stormwater rule. So anyway, there's some problems here. I'm crusading on this on my own, but if anybody has any questions or concerns about this bill, please do let me know. And this next one is on-site. This is a septic tank bill. Exactly, as far as I can tell, is exactly like a bill that was run last year by different sponsors, but did not pass last year. So this simply requires or removes the requirement to have a septic tank permit before you can get a building permit for a new residential home. This would allow you to get that building permit for that home without a septic tank permit. It just pushes that obligation until, before you can get a certificate of occupancy. So this was intended to just be to help with permitting delays associated with septic tank permits. So that's what that does. Last year, Connerly ran this bill in the House, but like I said, it hasn't it didn't pass last year, but it's back again this year. Okay, so 701 is another bill by Rep. Connerly. He ran the Water Management District bill last year. For those of you who remember, had a lot of things in there about imposing more maybe accountability or transparency on some of the spending associated with SERP projects or Everglades projects. A lot of that is still back in there. You see this, providing detailed report, total estimated remaining cost, kind of, performance indicators for all project components. All that stuff is back in here. I haven't read the bill cover to cover yet. It seems like there's a few more things in here, and I have not talked to Rep. Connerly. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few other things in here. This bill, is a little different from last year, but it's got some of the same guts. So please take a look at that if you're in South Florida and SERP is in your wheelhouse. That bill is back. It does have a identical companion by Senator Broder. So to me, this looks like it's set up to pass this year with Senator Broder as the bill sponsor in the Senate. We talked about the release of conservation easement bill already, the McLean version. This is the House companion. This is the House companion of the septic tank bill. So I'm going to skip these. Here's another new bill. We've talked about this on CLGR a couple of times. It does have a professional concerns angle to it. This is called landscape irrigation, and it's by Cobb in the House and Trunow in the Senate. This would create a new category of professional called a professional landscape irrigation. Maybe I don't want to murder this. I'll just say it creates a new landscape professional licensure, and it also limits those licensed people to do or it restricts certain activities to only those licensed people. So these new licensed irrigation contractors. One of the things that it restricts them or makes them the only ones that could do is the design of certain landscape irrigation systems. And so it's that in that design part that we probably have a professional concern. The rest of this bill, I mean, it's interesting to me. I think there may be some good policy. There's lots of things in here about, particularly for high volume irrigation systems, think golf courses or big commercial irrigation systems. It imposes a lot of water smart features. So you're not, when you drive down the street and you see the sprinklers running when it's raining outside, we just kind of roll our eyes. But if you're in the CFWI area or South Florida or in the SWCA area, and everybody knows the aquifers are straining to meet our demand, that kind of stuff is dumb. This bill does impose a lot of obligations on landscape irrigation systems. and those obligations really don't kick in until the larger system. So this isn't going to affect a single family home, but the larger systems. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on this. It's got 4 committees of reference in the House. So again, it's got a very challenging path anyway. Beach management, I got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try to go fast. Beach management has got some beach nourishment stuff in here. So if you're in the coastal policy world, particularly in beach nourishment, do take a look at this. There's some interesting things in there. Yes, I saw you, Gary, on the list. Watching this closely, I'll get smarter on this bill, I promise. So we could talk about it. Senate Bill 558, this other stormwater management system bill, this is a repeat from last year that imposes third-party inspections and specific standards, DOT standards for stormwater pipes and culverts and things like that, underground conveyance of stormwater. This was here last year, did not make it last year, was a concern by local governments, and the Stormwater Association last year. They're concerned about the same bill coming back. So folks are watching that. Here's the companion conservation lands bill and coastal resilience bill, the DAX bill. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. I'm not spending more time. There's a big omnibus agriculture bill by True Now. There's some biosolids provisions in here that are very interesting. So keep an eye on that. There's the landscape irrigation companion by True Now. Conservation lands. Sorry, this is actually not the release of conservation lands. There's a pair of bills that I've thrown in the list here because there's some, because it's conservation, because there's some obligations on disposing of conservation lands, state-owned conservation lands. That those bills are in this list. There's the DAX companion and the government preemption companion. Auxiliary containers, that's the companion of the waste management bill I mentioned earlier. And then I think we're down to the end of the list. There is a bill on phosphate mining, former phosphate mining lands, creating kind of I believe it provides some immunity or liability protection once for like a builder or a developer, if once the documentation of radiation levels is established. Anyway, there's some things in here about redeveloping former phosphate mining lands. If you're interested in that or live in that area, look at that. And then this is the companion bill for that DOT pipe third-party inspection bill. All right, 9:30. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know some folks have back-to-back meetings. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll do this again next week, and I will probably focus a little bit more time on the bills that are starting to move and make sure that I've got a little bit better information in case folks have questions. I'll also leave some time for questions next time. Sorry, we kind of ran right up to the end. Laura, I see your hand raised. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just a quick reminder that we have our general and transportation bills call that starts at 10 o'clock. And in that call, we will cover the indemnification bill and then anything that isn't necessarily specific to the environmental space. So please feel free to join us for that if you have the time. Again, these videos will be posted either later on today or early Monday, as will the reports that we have posted here. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Jeff.